Ethan, let's get everything out in the open. Mark and I have been married for 3 years. The house we live in, the company we built, it's all in his name. On the night of our 3-year anniversary, my fiancée, Sarah Miller, gave me a surprise in front of all our friends that shattered my world. Standing beside her was Mark Sterling, our company's VP and the man I thought was my best friend. He had his arm draped arrogantly around her waist, wearing a smirk that told me he'd already won. Across the table, Sophia Vance, Sarah's best friend, suddenly stood up. Before anyone could react, she threw a glass of red wine straight into Sarah's face. The upscale Italian restaurant was bathed in soft candlelight, with rose petals scattered across the white linen tablecloth. I was still clutching a velvet jewelry box containing a diamond ring that had cost me 3 months' salary. I had planned to propose tonight, marking 3 years of what I thought was a perfect relationship. Amidst the cheers of our friends, Sarah had stood up slowly, but there was no joy in her eyes, only a cold, condescending stillness. Ethan, let's be real. Mark and I have been married for 3 years. The restaurant fell into a deafening silence. My brain felt like it had been hit by a sledgehammer. I couldn't breathe. I looked at her, then at Mark. Mark, my most trusted business partner, was now standing in a victor's pose, his hand heavy on Sarah's shoulder. What are you talking about? My voice sounded like sandpaper. It means you need to move out, Sarah said, her tone as casual as if she were discussing the weather. The house is in Mark's name. The agency we started? Mark is the sole owner. Ethan, thanks for all the hard work these past 3 years. Now you can get lost. Her words were like poisoned daggers driven into the softest parts of my heart. I had designed that house myself. Every corner was filled with our memories. In the agency, I had pulled countless all-nighters and landed every major client to get us where we were. Now all of it belonged to someone else. Our friends looked at each other, their expressions shifting from celebratory to horrified. Sarah, are you insane? One of our mutual friends shouted, standing up. We all saw how Ethan treated you. How he treated me. Sarah scoffed, leaning her head intimately against Mark's shoulder. You saw him working like a dog for me, but you didn't see what Mark could actually give me. Ethan, how much do you even make a month? How are you ever going to give me a real future? Mark tilted his chin up. Don't blame her for being realistic, Ethan. That's just the way the world works. If you're broke, even breathing is a mistake. Oh, I forgot to tell you. We're restructuring the equity next month. Consider your share a consulting fee for your hard work, though we're paying you out in a different way. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a crumpled $100 bill, and tossed it onto the table. Take and go. Don't pull a scene in our place. Humiliation, rage, and heartbreak surged through me, threatening to tear me apart. I looked at the couple in front of me and felt like I was looking at total strangers. 3 years of love and sacrifice had been nothing but a meticulously planned scam. I was the fool, the court jester who had been kept in the dark while building their empire. My fists clenched so hard my nails drew blood. Just as I was about to lose control, a sharp voice broke the tension. Sarah, you make me sick. It was Sophia. She stood there, breathing hard, having just emptied her glass over Sarah's perfectly made-up face. Red wine dripped from Sarah's hair and down her cheeks, making her look pathetic. Sophia, what the hell are you doing? Sarah shrieked. What I'm doing? Sophia sneered. I'm doing what Ethan is too much of a gentleman to do. You love money so much. I hope that vintage Bordeaux helps you sober up. Take a good whiff. Is it the scent of wealth you were looking for? Everyone was stunned, including me. I had always assumed Sophia and Sarah were inseparable. Sarah shook with rage, pointing a finger at Sophia. You're going to regret this. Mark stepped forward, pointing at Sophia's face. You bitch, you wanna die? Slap. The sound of the hit echoed through the room. I had moved. I stood up and delivered a backhand across Mark's face, so hard it sent him staggering back 2 steps. 5 clear finger marks bloomed on his cheek instantly. The entire restaurant gasped. You hit me, Mark gasped, clutching his face in disbelief. I shook my numbing hand, my eyes as cold as ice. Hitting you? That's just the beginning. I didn't look at them again. I grabbed Sophia's hand and turned to leave. Behind me, Sarah's hysterical screams and Mark's panic curses faded as we pushed through the doors. Outside, the Chicago wind hit my face, chilling me to the bone. But my heart was colder. Thank you, I whispered to Sophia. Sophia shook her head, her eyes rimmed with red. I'm the one who should say sorry. I suspected things for a while, but I didn't have proof, and I didn't know how to tell you. I stopped and looked at her. For a while. Sophia nodded. She reached in her bag and handed me a folder. These are copies of the company ledgers I took. Look at them. From day one, they've been siphoning assets into a shell company Mark registered offshore. I took the file, my hands trembling. As I flipped through the pages, every number felt like a mockery of my naivety. I hadn't just been betrayed emotionally. I'd been used as a tool to create wealth only to be discarded. Ethan, what are you going to do? Sophia asked worriedly. I took a deep breath and tucked the file away. The last flicker of warmth in my eyes vanished, replaced by a dark, clinical coldness. I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't touched in 3 years. The call was picked up on the first ring. A deep, authoritative voice came through. Kid, you're finally calling? Is that ridiculous test of yours over? It's over, I said, my voice flat. Dad, I'm done playing. Starting tomorrow, I'm coming home. It's time to take over the business. There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by a long sigh of relief. Good. About damn time. I'll have Alfred pick you up. Where are you? No need. I'll find my own way back. I hung up and looked at the city lights. 3 years ago, I graduated college and walked away from my inheritance. I wanted to prove I could make it on my own, and I wanted to prove that Sarah loved me, not my family's name. Now, I realize what a joke that was. My father, the chairman of the James Group, had made a deal with me. If I couldn't produce results that satisfied him within 3 years, I had to return and manage the multi-billion-dollar estate. For 3 years, I had lived under a pseudonym, starting as a low-level salesman and eventually founding that small agency with Sarah and Mark. I thought I had earned love and success. Instead, I found out I was just a puppet in someone else's game. The love was a fraud. The business was a hollow shell. Ethan, Sophia looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sympathy, worry, and something else I couldn't quite read. I'm fine, I said, offering a smile that felt more like a grimace. Thanks for tonight, Sophia. And for this file. It means everything. We're friends, aren't we? Sophia bit her lip. So, are you going to go to the office and cause a scene? Mark is a petty man, Ethan. I'm afraid of what he might do. A scene? I shook my head, a cold glint in my eyes. I'm not going to cause a scene. I'm going to make them beg to give back everything they stole, with interest. Sophia looked at me, and for a moment, I seemed like a stranger to her. She didn't ask anything else, only gave a silent nod. I dropped Sophia off and went back to the place I once called home. The door was unlocked, and the interior was a mess. My belongings had been tossed into the center of the living room like a pile of trash. Sarah and Mark were on the sofa, supervising a couple of movers who were throwing my things into boxes. When Sarah saw me, she didn't even look up. She just waved a hand dismissively. You're finally back? Take your junk and get out. It's an eyesore. Mark stood up and walked over to me. He patted my cheek condescendingly, his tone mocking. Well, if it isn't the great creative director. What's the matter? Got nowhere to go. You want another $100 for a cheap motel? The gesture was pure insult. I didn't move. I just looked at him, my gaze terrifyingly calm. Mark, I said slowly, have you ever stopped to think about how you actually got everything you have right now? How I got it? I earned it. Mark burst out laughing, as if I'd told the funniest joke in the world. Ethan, you can't be so naive to think this company wouldn't exist without you. Let's be honest. From the start, you were just a pawn in our plan. Free labor. Your ideas, your clients. They're all mine now. Is that so? I smiled thinly. Then do you know why your biggest client, Henderson Global, agreed to work with a small-time agency like ours? Mark blinked, then scoffed. Because they saw my talent and our potential, obviously. No, I shook my head. The CEO, Mr. Henderson, is an old friend of my father's. I made one phone call, and that was it. Mark's face paled instantly. What are you talking about? It means, I said, my smile vanishing, that as of tomorrow, Henderson Global will unilaterally terminate all contracts with your agency, and they will be suing you for breach of contract and damages. Bullshit. Who are you trying to scare? Mark's voice was loud, but his bravado was crumbling. Sarah frowned and walked over. Ethan, stop with the dramatics. You're a nobody. How are you going to fight us? You think a guy like Henderson is going to listen to a loser like you? If he won't listen to me, he certainly won't listen to you, I said, looking at the face that used to haunt my dreams. Now it just made me sick. Sarah, you're about to find out exactly what you gave up for money, and exactly what kind of trash you chose instead. I walked past them into the bedroom and grabbed a few personal items. There wasn't much worth taking, just some clothes and an old photo frame. It was a picture of me and my mother. She had passed away when I was very young. It was the only thing I had left of her. As I reached for it, Sarah stormed in and snatched the frame from my hand, throwing it violently against the floor. Crack! The glass shattered, and a jagged tear ripped through the photo. Ethan, tell me the truth. Who the hell are you? Sarah screamed, her composure finally breaking. My entire body went rigid. I turned slowly, the shards of glass reflecting the cold, sharp light in my eyes. I knelt down, carefully picking up the damaged photo and smoothing the tear with my thumb. Then, I stood up and walked toward her. Every step felt like a heartbeat, and she instinctively backed away. "What were you doing?" Her voice trembled. I didn't say a word. I raised my hand. Slap! A sharp, ringing blow landed across her face. I put every ounce of my pin-up fury into it. Her cheeks swelled almost instantly, and a bead of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and rage. "You hit me? Ethan, you actually hit me?" "That slap," I said, my voice devoid of emotion, "was for my mother. That photo was the only thing I had left of her, and you broke it." My gaze cut through her like a blade, making her heart skip a beat. Mark finally reacted, roaring as he lunged at me. "You don't you touch her." He swung a wild punch at my head. I stepped aside easily, catching him off balance, and drove my foot into the side of his knee. Mark screamed as he dropped to one knee, his face contorted in pain. "Pathetic," I said, looking down at him. For the past 3 years, I had hit the gym every day to keep my mind sharp. Mark, meanwhile, had spent his time drinking and chasing women. You're dead." Mark wheezed, clutching his knee. "I'll make sure you can't get a job at a Starbucks in this city." "I look forward to it," I said, adjusting my collar. I picked up my small suitcase and walked to the door. I stopped and looked back one last time. "Oh, I'd almost forgot. Just a reminder, the core patents for the agency's tech are in my personal name. Tomorrow, my lawyers will serve you with a cease and desist. The penalty for unauthorized use? Roughly 10 times the current valuation of your company." I walked out without looking back. Behind me, there was a dead silence, followed by the sound of Sarah and Mark's panicked screaming. I walked down the night streets of Chicago, the neon lights stretching my shadow. 3 years of my youth gone. I pulled out my phone and saw a message from Sophia. "Are you okay? Did they do anything to you?" "I'm out. I'm Fina. Where are you going to stay?" "You can crash at my place for the night if you need to." A bit of warmth touched my heart. In this cold city, at least someone cared. "Thanks, Sophia, but I found a place. I'll talk to you soon." I hailed a taxi and gave the driver an address. It was the most exclusive neighborhood in the city, the Summit Heights, a place I hadn't stepped foot in for 3 years. Home. Half an hour later, the cab pulled up to a heavily guarded estate gate. The security guard saw me and immediately stood at attention. "Welcome home, Mr. James." I nodded and walked inside. Past the manicured gardens, a massive, brilliantly lit mansion appeared. Alfred, the estate manager, was waiting at the door. His eyes grew misty when he saw me. "Young master, you're finally back. The chairman is waiting in the study." I patted his shoulder and walked into the house. In the study, my father, Arthur James, sat behind a massive mahogany desk. He looked older than he did 3 years ago. His hair was grayer, but his eyes were still as sharp as a hawk's. "You're back." "I'm back. You finally see the light." "I see it." "Good." Arthur nodded and pushed a thick folder across the desk. "These are the dossiers on all our subsidiaries. Get familiar with them. Tomorrow morning at 9, there's a board meeting. I will officially announce that you are taking over as the president of the James Group." His tone was final. I picked up the folder. I knew that the naive, hard-working Ethan who thought he could win on merit alone was dead. Standing, there was the heir to the James empire, a man ready for revenge. "Dad," I said, looking up, "I need a favor." "Speak." "I want everything on Sarah Miller and Mark Sterling. I want their agency, Creative Pulse, and Mark's offshore accounts. I want it all in detail." Arthur's eyes flashed with approval. "Done. Alfred is already on it. The files will be on your desk tomorrow morning. One more thing," I added, my voice turning icy. "I want them bankrupt. I want them to lose everything, and I want them buried in debt." Arthur looked at me for a long time before speaking. "Ethan, business isn't a game. Emotional moves can be costly." "This isn't an emotional move," I said calmly. "They stole 3 years of my life and my mother's memory. They need to pay, and I want them to pay 1,000 times over." The air in the room seemed to drop to freezing. Arthur gave a slow, satisfied nod. "A son of mine shouldn't be bullied. Do what you have to do. The James Group is behind you." The next morning, I arrived at the executive suite wearing a bespoke Italian suit. Alfred had already placed a thick stack of documents on my desk. It contained everything: Sarah and Mark's histories, their families, their secrets. Mark came from a middle-class background and had lied and cheated his way up. Sarah was driven by an insatiable vanity. They had been sleeping together since before the agency was even founded. The entire startup had been a long con targeted at me. They had used my creative talent and my connections to scale the agency, then used fraudulent contracts to funnel the profits into Mark's shell company in the Caymans. In 3 years, they had siphoned over $50 million. Meanwhile, I was happy with my executive salary, thinking we were building a future together. It was pathetic. At the back of the file was an equity analysis of Creative Pulse. Mark held 60%. Sarah held 30% through a proxy. I, the co-founder, held a mere 10% sweat equity share buried under clauses that made me liable for all company debts if things went south. It was a perfect trap. I closed the file, my eyes cold. If Sophia hadn't warned me, I'd be facing financial ruin right now. Sir, the board meeting is starting, Alfred reminded me gently. I nodded, adjusted my tie, and walked toward the conference room. When I pushed the doors open, every eye in the room landed on me. Some were confused, some were judgmental, others were outright dismissive. Arthur, what is the meaning of this? A man in his late 40s spoke up. It was my uncle, Robert James, the group VP who had been eyeing my father's chair for years. It's simple, my father said from the head of the table. As of today, Ethan James is the president of the James Group. I am stepping down to serve as chairman emeritus. The room erupted into murmurs. Arthur, you gotta be joking. You're putting a kid in charge? What does he know about the industry? Robert snapped. He's right. This is reckless, another board member added. I didn't say a word. I just sat down and watched them like they were circus performers. Qualifications? My father sneered, tossing a document onto the table. How about the fact that he is now the majority shareholder, holding 51% of the company? Is that enough qualification for you? Silence. No one expected my father to have transferred his majority stake to me so soon. Robert's face turned a sickly shade of gray. I sat in the president's chair and scanned the room. Gentlemen, I know many of you don't trust me. That's fine. Time will prove me right. Now, my first act as president. I paused, looking at the agenda on the screen. The Henderson Global Partnership is being put on hold. Legal department, I want a cease and desist sent to Creative Pulse Advertising immediately. We are suing them for the theft of core proprietary technology and seeking $500 million in damages. What? $500 million? That's... The room was stunned. The Henderson deal was the biggest project of the year, worth billions. Creative Pulse was an ant compared to us. Why put a billion-dollar deal on hold to crush an ant? Robert was the first to object. Ethan, you've lost your mind. Do you have any idea how much money we lose by delaying the Henderson project? You're risking the entire company for a personal grudge. Robert, watch your tone. I am the president, I said coolly. I'm not risking the company. I'm protecting its assets. If our core patents are being used by a bottom-tier agency, it devalues our brand and our future products. A $500 million lawsuit is just the opening move. They need to learn that stealing from the James Group has consequences. My voice was firm, and my gaze was sharp enough to stifle any further protest. The room stayed silent. Since there are no other objections, the motion carries, I said, standing up. Meeting adjourned. Back in my office, I called Mr. Henderson. Jim, it's Ethan. Ethan, good to hear from you. Your father told me the news. Congratulations on the promotion, President James. Thanks, Jim. Look, I'm calling to let you know we might need to push the launch back a week. Oh, everything okay? Just a bit of trash that needs taking out. Don't worry, I'll have a better proposal on your desk within 7 days. Haha, no problem. I trust you, kid. Don't let me down. I hung up, a cold smile playing on my lips. Sarah, Mark, the game has just begun. I wanted to see how long they'd last without their biggest client and without the tech they stole. Meanwhile, over at Creative Pulse, Sarah and Mark were losing their minds over the call from the James Group legal team. $500 million. Are they insane? Mark roared, sweeping everything off his desk. Sarah was deathly pale. She couldn't understand it. How did Ethan, the broke loser, suddenly become the president of the James Group? The James Group was a titan of industry. It has to be a mistake. How could Ethan be a James? He told me his parents were dead. Sarah's voice was shaking. For 3 years, Ethan had told her he was an orphan. Who cares what he said? Mark yelled, grabbing his hair. The bastard played us. He's a goddamn liar. What? What do we do? We don't have $500 million. Sarah panicked. Their liquid assets were only a few million. The money they'd siphoned was tied up in high-risk offshore investments. Call a lawyer. I don't care what it costs. Mark gritted his teeth. However, every major law firm in Chicago turned them down the moment they heard the opposing party was the James Group. No one was stupid enough to offend a billionaire for a small retainer fee. Just as they were spiraling, the receptionist called. Mr. Sterling, the secretary from Henderson Global, is here. They want to talk about terminating the contract. What? Sarah and Mark screamed in unison. Henderson Global was their lifeblood. If they pulled out, the agency would collapse in days. They ran to the conference room. The secretary was waiting, looking stern. "What is this about? Our partnership has been great," Mark said, forcing a smile. The secretary pushed a document across the table. "Mr. Henderson's orders. Effective immediately, Henderson Global is terminating all business with Creative Pulse. Furthermore, per the contract, since you cannot fulfill the remaining services, we are seeking $30 million in liquidated damages." $30 million. The number hit them like a physical blow. "This isn't fair," Sarah shrieked. "This is Ethan. He's behind this." The secretary looked at her coldly. "We choose our partners freely. As for Mr. James, yes, he spoke with Mr. Henderson. But even without that, Henderson Global does not do business with people who steal intellectual property." He stood up and walked out without another word. Sarah and Mark slumped into their chairs, faces ashen. A $500 million lawsuit and a $30 million debt. The weight was crushing them. Word spread through the office instantly. The top talent began calling recruiters before lunch. In a single day, the agency they had spent 3 years building was on the verge of total collapse. "This is your fault," Sarah exploded, pointing at Mark. "If you hadn't insisted on stealing those patents, we wouldn't be in this mess." "My fault." Mark pushed her back. "Who told me Ethan was a useless loser we could use? But wanted the offshore money for designer bags and a new Porsche? We're in this together, Sarah." They began screaming at each other like rabid dogs. I watched it all through the hidden camera I'd left in the office, sipping a coffee. "It's all set, sir," Alfred said, entering my office. "We've reached out to their core staff with offers they can't refuse. Also, the banks have been notified. They'll be calling in the agency's loans by tomorrow morning." I nodded. "Good. Keep the pressure on. I want them to know the meaning of true despair." My phone rang. It was Sophia. "Ethan, I heard. You're the president of the James Group?" Her voice was full of disbelief. "News travels fast," I said with a light laugh. There was a long silence. Is what you're doing to Sarah and Mark because of the file I gave you?" I could hear the guilt in her voice. "Sophia, don't go there," I said seriously. "This has nothing to do with you. Even without that file, I wouldn't have let them go. You helped me, and I'm grateful. But no buts. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. You, however, are still working there. Be careful. They're going to be looking for someone to blame." "I quit today," Sophia said. Sarah screamed at me, tried to hit me, but security stopped her. My eyes turned cold. "She tried to touch you?" "I'm fine. I handled it," Sophia said, her voice sounding lighter. "I just wanted to let you know I'm looking for a new job." "Don't bother," I said. "Come to the James Group. I need a chief of staff I can actually trust." Sophia was silent so long I thought the call dropped. "Ethan, are you serious? Chief of staff for the James Group? Do I sound like I'm joking?" I asked. "I've seen your work for 3 years. You're sharper and more organized than anyone in that office. And you're the only person I trust. The job is yours. But I just went to state school. I'm afraid I'll mess it up." "If I say you can do it, you can do it," I interrupted her self-doubt. "Tomorrow at 9, my office. It's an order, not a suggestion." I hung up before she could say no. I wanted her close for 2 reasons. I genuinely needed her help, and it was the only way to keep her safe from Sarah and Mark's inevitable lashing out. The next day, Sophia appeared at my office. She was wearing a professional suit and light makeup, looking sharp but clearly nervous. "Mr. James," she said formally. "Come in." I pointed to the sofa. "Seat." I had my secretary bring her coffee and pushed a contract across the desk. "Special assistant to the president. $1 million salary, housing and car allowance, top-tier benefits. Any questions?" Sophia's jaw dropped. "Ethan, this is too much. I can't take this. This isn't a gift. It's what you're worth," I said firmly. "I need you to be my eyes and ears. This price is actually a bargain." She hesitated, then finally signed. I'll do my best." Over the next few days, Sophia adapted with incredible speed. Her ability to organize my schedule and analyze complex reports was even better than I'd expected. With her handling the logistics, I could focus entirely on the destruction of Sarah and Mark. Creative Pulse was in a death spiral. Most of the staff had left. The bank was hounding them. Lawsuits were piling up. Sarah and Mark had sold their house and cars, but it was a drop in the ocean compared to what they owed. That afternoon, my receptionist called. Sarah and Mark were in the lobby, demanding to see me. "Send them up," I said. When they entered, they looked like they had aged 10 years. Sarah was pale, wearing cheap clothes. Mark was unshaven, his eyes sunken. "Ethan," Sarah cried, trying to throw herself at my feet. I was wrong. Please forgive us. For the sake of our 3 years together, let us go. I stepped aside, letting her fall to the floor. 3 years? You mean the 3 years you spent spending my money while sleeping with him? Sarah's face went white. Mark dropped to his knees, slapping his own face. Mr. James, I was blind. I was a fool. Please, just let me go. I'll do anything. I watched their performance with total indifference. Now you beg? It's too late. I gave you chances. You push yourselves into this abyss. Ethan, do you really have to be this cruel? Sarah screamed, dropping the act. She stood up, her face twisted in rage. Aren't you afraid of karma? Karma. I laughed. If karma exists, it's currently knocking on your door. My karma is watching you two rot. The door opened, and Sophia walked in. Sarah's eyes found a new target. Sophia, you bitch. You're the one who told him, weren't you? You backstabbing snake. She lunged at Sophia. I started to get up, but Sophia was faster. She stepped back, dodged the attack, and delivered a crisp slap to Sarah's face. That, Sophia said firmly, was a long time coming. Sarah, I treated you like a sister, and you treated me like a fool. Did you really think I didn't know about you and Mark? I stayed quiet out of loyalty, but you don't even know what that word means. Sarah stared at her, stunned. She never expected the quiet Sophia to fight back. You hit me too. Compared to what you did to Ethan, that slap was nothing, Sophia said. Don't ever talk to me about loyalty again. I signaled the security guards. Get them out. They are banned from this building for life. Sarah screamed curses as she was dragged out. Mark followed like a broken man, muttering to himself. You okay? I asked Sophia. Yeah, she sighed. It's just sad. The Sarah I knew wasn't like that. People change when they get greedy. I said, don't waste tears on her. I looked at her and changed the subject. Are you free tonight? I need a date for a gala. Sophia blinked. A gala? A business event. Very important, I said. And I need the best woman by my side. Sophia blushed, but nodded. Okay. That evening, I took her to a high-end boutique. I told the stylist, make her look like a queen. An hour later, I couldn't believe my eyes. She was wearing a midnight blue gown that hugged her curves perfectly. Her hair was up, revealing her elegant neckline. She looked sophisticated, mysterious, and stunning. How do I look? She asked nervously. Beautiful, I said, offering my arm. Shall we, my queen? The gala was held at a 5-star hotel, attended by the elite of Chicago. As soon as we entered, we were the center of attention. Mr. James, who is this lovely lady? People asked. I just smiled and introduced her as my partner. Sophia handled herself with grace, despite her initial nerves. Then a familiar, unpleasant voice broke through. Well, if it isn't the new president. It was my uncle, Robert. He was walking toward us with a young woman on his arm. Robert, I said coldly. Ethan, I have to say, your taste is interesting, Robert sneered, looking at Sophia with disdain. You dump one gold digger and pick up a pretty little assistant? These girls are fine for a weekend, but they don't belong at a table like this. Sophia's face went pale. I pulled her behind me and looked Robert in the eye. Uncle Robert, you seem to have a lot of free time. Maybe you should spend it looking into that South African mining project you're managing. I heard there are some discrepancies. Robert's face turned white. That project was a mess of mismanagement and hidden losses that he'd been covering up for years. He thought nobody knew. How did you a month? I whispered. You have 1 month to clean it up, or you won't just be fired. You'll be indicted. And I stepped closer. Sophia is the woman I love. Watch your mouth, or I'll make sure you spend your retirement in a cell. I left him standing there, drenched in a cold sweat. The atmosphere lightened after that, but Sophia seemed down. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing, she lied. I just feel like I don't fit in. He was right. We're from different worlds. I took her hand. Sophia, look at me. There are no different worlds. There is only the world I want to be in. And right now, I want you to be the most important person in mine. She looked at me, her eyes shimmering. Ethan, I love you, Sophia. I said. I think I have for a long time. I was just too blind to see it. When Sarah betrayed me, I finally saw who was really there for me. Sophia's tears finally fell. Tears of joy. She nodded and leaned in, kissing me softly on the cheek. Over the next few months, our lives were perfect. At the office, she was my brilliant assistant. At home, she was my everything. She gave me a sense of peace I never had with Sarah. Meanwhile, Sarah and Mark had hit rock bottom. Their agency was bankrupt. Their assets were seized. They were blacklisted and broke. Their love had turned into constant fighting. Mark had started gambling away what little they had left, and Sarah was seen at dive bars trying to find a new rich man to save her. I felt no pity, only justice. I turned over the evidence of their financial crimes to the DA. They were facing 15 years for fraud and embezzlement. Everything was going well until the night of the James Group Charity Gala. The gala was a massive success. I had personally spearheaded the event to raise money for underprivileged schools. Everyone who mattered in Chicago was there. The auction was the highlight. The last item was a joke item the organizers had added, a private dinner with President Ethan James. The starting bid was $1. The room laughed, and the bidding took off. 50,000, 100,000, 500,000. Then, a voice from the back of the room froze the air. $10 million. The room went silent. Every head turned. It was Sarah. She was wearing a tight black dress and heavy makeup. She looked different, harder. Beside her stood a man I recognized, Big Bill Moretti, a guy who made his money in the gray areas of the city. He was old enough to be her father and was looking at her with pure lust. Sarah had found her new meal ticket. She smirked at me. Big Bill put an arm around her waist, looking smug. Sophia's hand tightened in mine. 10 million once. Twice. Sold, the auctioneer yelled. Sarah walked onto the stage and took the microphone. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Miller. You might not know me, but I'm Ethan James, ex-fiancé. The room exploded into whispers. The cameras started flashing. Ethan and I were together for 3 years, she said, squeezing out a few fake tears. We built a life together. But the moment he got power, he dumped me and used his lawyers to ruin everything we built. I'm just here to ask him, Ethan, did those 3 years mean nothing to you? Is your heart made of stone? The crowd started murmuring against me. What a jerk, someone whispered. He looks like such a gentleman, but he's a dog. Sophia was shaking with anger. I stood up, took the mic, and walked onto the stage. Are you done? I asked Sarah. What? Are you feeling guilty? She sneered. Guilty? I laughed. Sarah, did you think playing the victim would work here? I snapped my fingers. The massive LED screen behind us lit up. It was a video from our anniversary night. Ethan, let's be real. Mark and I have been married for 3 years. The house, the company, it's all in his name. Now, you can get lost. The room went silent. Then the screen showed Mark throwing the $100 bill at me. Then it showed Sarah smashing the photo of my mother. Finally, it showed the forensic accounting of their embezzlement. The evidence was undeniable. The crowd's sympathy turned into disgust. Oh my God, she's a monster, someone yelled. Sarah's face went white. No, it's fake. He's lying. I pulled out a voice recorder. It was her and Mark in my office, begging for mercy and admitting their crimes. Sarah collapsed on the stage. Big Bill looked at her like she was a piece of rotting meat. He realized he'd just publicly tied himself to a woman who had crossed the James Group. He glared at her, turned around, and walked out without a word. Sarah, I said, looking down at her. In a world of power, your little games are just a joke. You destroyed my past, so I'm destroying your future. It's only fair. I walked off the stage, took Sophia's hand, and we left. Sarah's hysterical screaming followed us out, but it didn't matter anymore. She was done in the city. Within months, Mark was sentenced to 15 years. Sarah, having lost her sanity along with her reputation, was eventually committed to a state psychiatric facility. I finally felt the weight lift. I could move on. The James Group thrived. My father was thrilled and began hinting that he wanted grandkids. Ethan, Sophia is a treasure. Don't make her wait. I didn't intend to. I planned a surprise proposal on a private island. Under the stars, on a beach covered in petals, I knelt before her. Sophia, I was a fool for a long time, but you were the light that brought me home. Will you marry me? She cried and said yes. Fireworks filled the sky. We were married a month later on that same island. It was small and beautiful. My father cried. Even Robert, who had been demoted and humbled, showed up to offer a sincere apology. We went on a month-long honeymoon around the world. For the first time, I wasn't a president or an heir. I was just a husband. A year later, Sophia gave birth to our son, Liam. My father was overjoyed, claiming that James' legacy was finally secure. I spent more time changing diapers than signing contracts, and I had never been happier. Years passed. The James Group became a global empire. Sophia remained my partner in everything. One autumn afternoon, Alfred told me someone was at the gate. She says her name is Sarah Miller. I met her in the tea room. She was a ghost, thin, gray, and wearing rags. I'm dying, Ethan, she said hoarsely. Late-stage cancer. I just wanted to see you one last time. She told me she regretted everything. She said she wished she'd chosen the poor Ethan over the money. If I could go back, she sobbed. Sarah, I said quietly, there is no going back. And you aren't sorry. You're just jealous of what I have now. If I were still broke, you wouldn't be here. I gave her a card with enough money for her hospice care. Don't come back. This is the last thing I will ever do for you. She screamed at me as I walked away, her regret turning back into the same old bitterness. She died a week later, alone. 10 more years passed. Liam was now a young man, graduating from business school with honors. I was 50. Sophia, let's retire, I said one night. Retire? Let Liam take the reins. Let's go back to that island. Let's just be us. We officially handed over the company on my 50th birthday. The transition was flawless. We spent our retirement traveling, visiting the places we'd seen on our honeymoon, and eventually settling in a quiet villa by the sea. One evening, watching the sunset over the Mediterranean, I held her hand. Would you do it all again? I asked. In a heartbeat, she whispered. I kissed her, knowing that the test I'd started all those years ago had finally led me to the only thing that actually mattered. Story complete.